I'm from California and a transplant to St. Louis. St. Louis has a lot of good and not so good, but you want to be aware of this before you move. Hi, I'm Ben, your St. Louis real estate ninja. If you need help with real estate in St. Louis in any capacity, that's what I'm here for. Please text, email, or call me, and I would love to help you out. St. Louis is really family friendly, and I did not know that when I first moved here, but let me give you some reasons why. St. Louis has a lot of things to do for families and kids that are either free or very affordable. Just to name a few, we have the City Museum, the zoo, which is free, the Science Center that's free, the Magic House is very affordable. There's also lots of parks and lakes and creeks and sporting activities and all types of things to do. And with St. Louis being one of the most affordable big metros in the country, you could do a lot of things with families. But also the culture of St. Louis is whenever there are events outside, like with tents and art fairs and all those type of things, they're usually all family friendly. Kids are welcome, dogs are welcomed. Everything is in a chill, low-key manner where everybody's just hanging out, family friendly, and it's always like that in St. Louis, and I really like that. Second is the quality of life. So I didn't know what to expect coming here from California. I thought the quality of life was just gonna be really boring and nothing to do. But the quality of life here is actually less stressful than a lot of bigger metros. First of all, the traffic is not as bad as most places. So coming from California, Texas, Florida, the East Coast, Denver, Seattle, whatever, the traffic here is generally better than any of those places. There is not one major highway. There are a lot of different little highways and you can kind of loop around and inside streets. So there is some traffic during rush time, but overall the traffic is pretty easy to get around. And traffic has a lot to do with quality of life and happiness and commute. So just know that you're more likely going to be less stressed in traffic in St. Louis. There are a lot of different places to hang out in different areas in St. Louis. So with that being said, not everything is so jam-packed into one place downtown, right? So there's different strips and other towns and city centers, and those are all manageable and not super overpacked. And I really like that. It's busy enough, but in a chill way where you're not looking for parking and paying for parking everywhere and just a whole grind of hustle and bustle. So that quality of life, I've come to really enjoy that. Since St. Louis is one of the most affordable big metros in America, you could have a great quality of home. So you can have a bigger home with a yard, in a safe area, in a good school district. So coming from California, you don't have a lot of options because the prices are so high. You can only get into this certain price range, and usually those can kind of be in the lower rated school districts, or crime might be a little bit higher and lock your doors and all that type of thing. So, you know, in St. Louis, where things are more affordable and there are more areas for homes, I really like that you can get a quality home, which means you are safe and in a school district for your kids. If you are a young single, a lot of people like to be in the city, and there are options there too where there is a lot of walkability and a lot of neighborhood shops and restaurants and bars, and a lot of the young people like to stay towards the city, but if you're having a family, there are a lot of things in the county to do as well. As a transplant from the West Coast, things were more expensive. I had a job, not making that much money, but I always had to have roommates, and I always had multiple roommates, and things would happen where they had to move on or live here or get married or whatever it was, and then I would have to find another place. So on average, I had to move every year. And after a while, it took a toll on me. When you're young and you're single, that's fine. But after I got engaged, I wanted to settle down. So now, being able to buy a house, live in a good neighborhood in St. Louis, I was able to make more money here and save more money here. So ever since I've moved, I've been able to travel more and do more things and venture out a little bit more given I am older now and making more money than I was in my 20s, but I'm just saying that if you are a young professional or a family or an established family, most likely you'll be able to save more money here so you can travel more. And that's great for your quality of life. One thing that surprised me is a divide and segregation in a underlying way. If you go to certain parts of St. Louis, it's very underserved and there's not a lot of things to do, and it's a food desert and there's no Walmarts or Targets or anything like that. And then when you go to these other sections, they're thriving and they have great subdivisions and plenty of things to do and attractions. So since St. Louis is a lot older than the West Coast, there has been history of white flight where the Caucasians moved to different parts of the area. There is a history of racial tension, and I don't know a lot of the history because I haven't been here that long, but I know that there is a certain area that is underserved, and then the rest of St. Louis is kind of doing well. So it's kind of this gap, this wage gap. In California, it's kind of the same thing. Where I'm from in San Jose, everybody thinks it's like Silicon Valley rich startups. And there are some of that, but then the regular people, there's a lot of homelessness too, because it's just unaffordable for the regular working class. In St. Louis, there's been this history where everybody was kind of together, and then as certain people moved in, then other people moved out towards the suburbs, and now there are some areas where it's just really underserved, undervalued, and it gets depressed. And then where all the money goes is to these other areas where they're building up subdivisions and businesses and all that. And it's really booming and really a great place to live. There's this thing in St. Louis called the Del Mar Divide, where it's like if you are north of the Del Mar Divide, then it's more underserved and there's more poverty. But then when you go below the Del Mar Divide, then everybody is doing well and economics are better and housing prices are better and there's a lot more to do. So that really surprised me. Coming from the Bay Area, there is a lot of diversity and there are good sides and bad sides, but it doesn't feel like super divided. Where I'm from in East Side San Jose, which is supposedly the more rough part of the area, it was very diverse. It had a lot of Asians, Hispanics, whites, Indians. It's a melting pot, so it doesn't really feel like there is like this divide and segregation. But in St. Louis, there could be African American neighborhoods, and then there can be white neighborhoods, and then there's other areas that are a little bit more mixed. So that is a little bit surprising if you're coming from the coast or a very diverse area. Next, there are a lot more things to do than I expected. So when you're from the coast, you feel like you have a lot of things to do and a lot of options. Going to the Midwest is going to be super boring. There's not going to be nothing to do. St. Louis is smaller. It's not Chicago. So I thought that there was going to be nothing to do, and it took me a while to find out. But there are a lot of things to do in this metro. So first of all, there's always events and annual events going on all over the whole metro. So there are Greek festivals, Halloween parties, art fairs, all types of things like that. It's all chill, it's all fun, it's all affordable. Parking is usually good, and that's great. There are a lot of downtown strips with places to walk and eat and hang out at. For example, we have the Central West End, we have the Del Mar Loop, we have Soulard, we have Webster, Kirkwood, Clayton Strip, St. Charles Main Street. So those are just little strips that you can walk that are all over the area. So there are a lot of places to check out, and if you have a rotation of going to different places, you're not going to run out of things to do. There's not only one place to go to. St. Louis has big events and concerts like every other big city. So a lot of big acts will come in, and there's a lot of concert venues to go to, and there's big and small concert venues. There are comedy specials, monster truck, rodeo shows, like circuses, like just like any other big city, there's always events coming to town in different places. Another thing that surprised me was a lot of greenery in the St. Louis area. There are a lot of parks. I love city parks. The main one is Forest Park, which is so big and it's kind of like Central Park, but under the radar. So it's huge, and it has a lot of amenities such as the art museum and the zoo and the science center and the Missouri History Museum. Tower Grove is another park that is really, really big, that has a lot of events, that is walkable to a lot of people in that area. But overall, there's a lot of county and city parks, and it is really good for being active, having your kids out there, walking the dogs. It's good for seniors, it's good for neighborhood and community. So there are a lot more parks here than where I came from in California. And I did not know that, but I just really come to go to parks. When you're at a park, you're being healthy, you're being positive, your mind's refreshed, you're not spending any money. There's a lot of good things about going to the park. You're playing catch, you're shooting hoops, you're playing baseball, you're walking around ponds. All these things are really, really nice. And sometimes I just walk around and I'm like, wow, this place is really beautiful, even though it's just like a regular park. I remember in San Jose, I would kind of have to drive far to get to parks. A lot of the parks are all dry and brown and not green because there's not a lot of rain. A lot of them were not that big. So a lot of times I would just go to high schools and shoot hoops and walk around these high schools because there was nowhere else to go, or not as many beautiful parks that are close by. But in St. Louis, there's parks everywhere. For the most part, you're always within a decent park within 10 minutes, whether it's small, big, who knows, but you are going to be around Greenery a lot. Another thing about Greenery is there are a lot of like lakes and streams and rivers that are not far away. So if you want to do some city fishing in the ponds, that's fine. But if you go a half an hour, 45 minutes out, you can get to the Merrimack River. On the Illinois side, there's some lakes. So there's a lot of greenery. There's a lot of hiking trails. Midwest is always known for being flat and not a lot of mountains and hills. And that's true. But overall, there is still some terrain and hills and a lot of trees and a lot of hiking paths. So, and they're not that far out and they're easy to get to. So you don't have to go all the way to Yosemite to go to someplace really nice. Of course, Yosemite and Sequoia, those are really major national park type of things. But St. Louis is more state parks and city parks. But there is a lot of greenery all over the place. And that's really good for your mental health. Another thing that surprised me was all of the free amenities that St. Louis has. This goes back to the quality of life where you can get out and you can do things without worrying about spending too much money. And that is just a huge relief coming from the West Coast or a big metro, because everything is just squeezing you, and this costs money, and parking costs money, and food costs money, and entrance fees cost money. In St. Louis, there are a lot of free amenities that most places do not have. So a lot of the free amenities are in Forest Park, and that is like the zoo, the science center, the Missouri History Museum. And you can just go there and switch it up every couple of months and see different exhibits. And it's just really cool to check in on them and be in the city and feel like you're getting new positive things in your mind. The Archway area is a really cool place to go to. It's a lot of greenery. And when you're right under the arch, it seems so grand. And I like being right next to a national monument that everybody knows. So I feel kind of cool that St. Louis has the arch, because that put us on the map and everybody knows what the arch is. It does cost money to go up to the top of the arch, but the museum and the area below is free. Also, Grant's Farm is amazing. It is a place that Ulysses Grant, former president, used to own, and Anheuser-Busch is a part of that. So it's a great time. It has animals, petting zoo, free beer samples, another free place to go to. The St. Louis Basilica in the Central West End is really grand. You can go in there and check it out. Forest Park, of course, is free because it's a park, but the amenities in there are really nice as well. There's an art museum that's free, so I like to go in there every couple of months just to see what other exhibits are in there as well. So that is a lot of free places. Most cities don't have anything free at all, or if they do, it's one or two in my experience. So I really like that. There's just tons of things to do and you can kind of rotate them out. And there are other places to go to as well that are lower cost than most cities. A lot of the events are free to get into. Of course, when you get there, they want you to spend money, buy food, what have you. So we are in the Midwest, and St. Louis does have a good food scene, and there are a lot of diverse options as well. Some areas have more better food than others. St. Louis has a growing and nice food scene. There are a lot of cool spots to go to. There is a lot of established places to go to. There are things popping up all the time. So there is a lot of food to go around in St. Louis. I would also say restaurants and food on the coast are better than in the Midwest and probably anywhere in the US. So I believe I grew up really spoiled with a lot of different types of food in California. I love Asian food, I love Mexican food. But in the Midwest, they might not know all the authentic Mexican, authentic Asian food that you get. In St. Louis, they know a lot about Italian food. We have a lot of specialties like toasted ravioli, gooey butter cake, barbecue. There's a lot of other things. It's just a different food culture. And also the restaurants here are probably comparable to the ones in California as far as price, because in California there is a lot of competition. So when I was growing up, the food was pretty cheap, but I know that, you know, over time inflation has gone up and food has gotten a lot more expensive on the coast as well. But I would say restaurant prices are comparable. As far as groceries and that type of food, I think that St. Louis is still cheaper than on the coast. But as far as foodie wise, restaurant wise, I would think they're comparable, with the coast having better options and better food. But overall, St. Louis has a lot of food option and you can still find a lot of great food here. Jobs. St. Louis has a lot of established jobs here, and there are a lot of good paying jobs as well. I did not know that at all, but there are a lot of established companies here, and you can make a great living here. And with the cost of living being so low compared to most places, you could have a great quality of life once again. Coming from the Silicon Valley, we think that we have the best jobs in the world because there's a lot of tech startups nearby. A lot of my friends work for Cisco and Facebook and Apple, and they're all in the Bay Area, so probably the best jobs in tech and, you know, really, really high salaries. But it's really hard to get by and still afford a home even when you make six figures. In St. Louis, I have a lot of friends that make six figures and they can afford a house and save and travel and do all that because the job situation here is good if you are in that higher income bracket. So just to name a few, Wash U Hospital is one of the bigger employers here, but there are a lot of headquarters here for Boeing, MasterCard, Anheuser-Busch, Purina, Edward Jones. There are a lot more, but there are a lot of jobs here. So if you make a little bit less than in the coast, I still feel like the quality of life is still better here because of what you could afford here. In California, I do have a lot of friends that make around six figures as well, and you know, they still have to live with their parents and rent out rooms, and very hard to start a family or live in a small studio apartment that costs a lot of money. And that's fine because of the weather and the lifestyle, but you can get a great job in St. Louis as well. And a lot of people do come to St. Louis from relocation and jobs. Monsanto, which is now Bayer, bring in a lot of relocation people to come over here as well. And yeah, a lot of people that come here, they're pleasantly surprised about the quality of life and the schools that they can go to and the house that they can get and the jobs that they can get. So don't sleep on the St. Louis market for jobs. A lot of the reports show that St. Louis has a declining population, and in the city limits of St. Louis, it is declining rapidly as people go more to the suburbs and out west. And those places are a lot more solid, and a lot of the jobs are there, and the nice houses are there, and the schools tend to be better rated over there. So what they say in the news about the population is not necessarily the exact truth to what's really going on in the market. There are some big, huge, booming markets that get really expensive too, right? Like Austin, Dallas, Charlotte, Florida, Phoenix. Those are like really, really booming, and St. Louis is not booming to that rate, but there is a slow and steady appreciation over here. There are a lot of jobs here, and if you make a decent wage, you could have a really good lifestyle here. So the average person, if they make $70,000 here, you could afford to live on your own and have a place to live without a bunch of roommates and living with tons of people. You can do that here. But if you make a little bit above that, if you're making six figures, you could have a really good quality of life. St. Louis was on the index of where 100K goes the most. I think they were number 10 as far as if you make 120,000 in California and you make 100,000 in St. Louis, your quality of life in St. Louis most likely would be better depending on what you like because of the cost here. Where in California, the taxes are going to be higher, the housing is going to be higher, the traffic and the gas is going to be a lot higher. So all that factors into how much your dollar goes. And living in the Midwest usually gives you a better value. Another thing that surprised me a lot about St. Louis was the beer culture. And I should have known that since Anheuser-Busch, Budweiser, Bud Light originated here. So St. Louis is like the beer capital of America. Over the decades, of course, there's been a lot of great beer towns and breweries and craft beer. But from St. Louis, there is a beer culture here, and it's very lax as far as the laws and events. So it's very normal to go to events and people have beers and koozies and, for Halloween, parents are out strolling their babies and beer. And, like I said, Grant's Farm, they give free beer samples away. The Budweiser Brewery gives beer samples away. So with everything being family friendly and a little beer involved, just know that there is a culture of beer here. So something to consider when moving to St. Louis. Other than Anheuser-Busch, there are a lot of microbreweries here. And those are really just really cool places to hang out and have a drink and talk with your friends and family. I really like Schlafly Bottle Works. There's also Four Hands Brewing. There's also Urban Chestnut. Those are some of the bigger name ones over here, but there are a lot of smaller little microbreweries as well. And when you come to St. Louis, be ready to have a beer. Cheers. The people in St. Louis are a lot different than on the coast. In California, people are nice too, and they're kind of more open, and it's kind of easy to kind of be a transplant and talk to everybody. In St. Louis, some people say that it's a little bit cliquey, where you grow up in a small bubble and you are really close with your cliquey bubble group, and so it might be hard for a transplant to get in. A lot of areas in St. Louis are established, so people have been there for a long time, and that means like they grew up with their friend group, and they have a little clique in a group. People in the Midwest are nice, and there is this Midwest hospitality. People work hard, they go to their job, they go home, hang out with their friends. So I feel like people at like restaurants and cashiers and jobs like that, they're more nice, have a good day. And that happens mostly everywhere too. But on the coast, they're a little bit more quicker with it. They're like, keep it moving, keep it moving. Also, the people have a little bit of a more small town feel, and there's not that much of this keeping up with the Jones type of thing. So I really like that, but it is an adjustment if you're coming from the coast where everything's like hustle and bustle, getting ahead, succeeding. So those are a few things there. So that's 10 things right there that surprised me about moving to St. Louis. Overall, it's been a great journey. I love living here. I would rather live here than on the coast at this point in my life. But if you need help with anything St. Louis real estate, text me, call me, email me. The Real Estate Ninja will help you out. I also have another video here about why I moved from California to St. Louis, and it might give you some more insights about the journey and going from the West Coast to the Midwest. And I hope you enjoy that one too. But other than that, I'll see you on the next one.